Our next item, item 02, is to receive a presentation from United Teachers of Richmond on West Contra Costa Unified School District's manufactured fiscal crisis and to review the financial practices of West Contra Costa Unified School District and to discuss recommendations on how to better support Richmond students and families.
Well, thank you, everybody. I put that item on the agenda, and thank you, the UTR teachers, to be here and present. For us, it's important to hear what is happening in our schools because our school serves a lot of our Richmond residents and the children in our area, and we need to know how we can partner in a better way with the school district to really improve the quality of education and support teachers and support the families. So it will be good for me and for the City Council to hear what is going on from the perspective of the teachers. I think like it's important to hear that side as well. As always, we had the administrators telling us one side, but I think like we need to hear from those who are inside the classroom supporting our kids and to see what a recommendation and what could we work together to strengthen the services for our young folks in Richmond. Thank you. So go ahead. Do you have a presentation, KCRT? Can you put it up?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Martinez, City Council members. My name is Francisco Ortiz. I am a homegrown teacher at Ford Elementary. I'm currently on release to serve as the president of United Teachers of Richmond. Tonight, I'm here with our bargaining co-chairs, Richelle Milford and Gabby Micheletti. Also joined with us is our executive director, Mark Mitchell, and the representative for the Teamsters Locals 856 union, who represents all of the classified employees in West Contra Costa, Sean Avon. So today we are issuing an SOS alert. Our school district is on the verge of a complete administrative collapse. Thousands of Richmond students are suffering irreparable educational harm due to mismanagement and financial misfeasance. 2 years ago, it was UTR educators who sounded the alarm about the deplorable conditions at Stige Elementary and the vacancy crisis across our district. It was our Teamster siblings who discovered the asbestos, which ultimately forced the district to close the old campus. We ask that you stand with the people closest to our students to provide better educational opportunities for Richmond and West County students. The financial governance of our school district is unacceptable. The data UTR presents tonight is not speculation. It is based on official financial filings submitted by West Contra Costa Unified to the state of California. In contrast, the district continues to mislead the public with narratives that do not align with financial realities. In fact, just 3 hours ago, the district's chief business officer agreed with our financial analysis before you today. He said it was a good presentation. Last week, the district announced on social media and Parent Square that there would be no immediate teacher layoffs. The district just yesterday announced that they plan on eliminating 75 UTR educator positions, an increase from 26 that was approved by the board in January. All the while, we still have 120 plus vacancies across the district. The city of San Francisco successfully intervened in a similar situation, exposing widespread misfeasance within SFUSD and initiating necessary reforms. Richmond must do the same, and we call on all other city councils in West Contra Costa's jurisdiction to join us in our collective fight. Our students are counting on us. We're requesting, on behalf of the 1,500 educators of UTR that UTR represents, for the Richmond City Council to, 1, pass a resolution declaring the financial governance a crisis in our district, underscoring the need for transparency and accountability, conduct an independent assessment of WCCUSD's financial practices, and make recommendations to ensure funds are being used directly to benefit students and educators. And third, to partner with educators, those closest to our students, to stop the unnecessary dismantling of our schools. Other working class communities such as Pittsburgh and Antioch have managed their school finances responsibly and provide their educators with competitive wages, ensuring students benefit from a stable, well-supported learning environment. Richmond students deserve no less. Our district has the funding and the responsibility to do better, and we urge the City Council to take action before Richmond and West County students suffer the consequences of inaction. And now I'll toss it over to our bargaining co-chairs who will present the rest of the presentation before you.
Hello, I'm Gabby Micheletti. I'm a Richmond resident and currently on release as Vice President of United Teachers of Richmond, but have taught at Verde Elementary.
Hi, I'm Richelle Milford. I'm a school psychologist, and I am a bargaining co-chair, and I am also a Richmond resident.
So according to the district's own documents, to be a fully staffed district from the perspective of educators, we would have slightly over 1,600 educators. At this time, based
Excuse
on...
me, do you need the slides of
Yes,
the
please.
presentation? KCRT, and can you tell when they need to
Yes.
change the slides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we go back to the first slide, please? Thank you. So we have 129 vacancies as of the position control list from January 31st. In addition to this, over the past 3 years, we have had 561 of our educators leave. Already this year, we've had 57 put in that they will resign at the end of June. And if the pattern holds from past years, this means by the end of June, we'll lose another 150 of our educators. Next slide, please.
Over the past 5 years, we've observed a concerning trend regarding total revenue and educator salaries. When we compare the increase in total revenue that West Contra Costa has received to the increase in pay our educators have received, we see a discrepancy, which reflects a smaller amount of the budget being allocated to those working directly with our students. Next slide.
So unfortunately, when we compare the wages of our educators in this district, you'll see that they are significantly lower than the average for the state of California, about 10% lower. Next slide, please. This is especially difficult to bring in and retain educators because if you look at Contra Costa County, I'm sure you all are familiar with this, we are one of the more expensive counties in California, particularly when you look at the self-sufficiency standard that looks at the income required to meet basic needs at a minimally adequate level. Next slide, please. So in this slide, the 3 blue bars represent the average across the state in California. The first on the left is the average teacher salary, which you just saw is about 10% higher than the average West Contra Costa teacher salary. The self-sufficiency standard in Contra Costa is about 29% higher than across the state, so we have lower wages and a higher cost of living. And in the income needed to afford a 1-bedroom apartment is about 43% higher in Contra Costa than other parts of California. So as we try to bring in new educators, finding housing for them is particularly challenging. Next slide, please. So as I just said, our salaries being average is not enough to keep up with the cost of living in Contra Costa to bring in educators. And it's even worse that we are not at the average to keep up with those same costs. Next slide, please. In addition to this, educators across the state have seen falling wages compared to similarly educated positions. So now educators make, I believe it was about 76 cents on the dollar to what a similarly educated professional would make. So not only are we lower in California, we are below that lower number in California. Next slide, please.
School finance is largely based on prediction. and the adopted budget is exactly that, a prediction. When we compare West Contra Costa's adopted budget to the unaudited actuals, which is the money they actually received, we see that West Contra Costa received anywhere from $26 to $92 million more than predicted over the last 4 years. On average, they received 14% more than predicted in their adopted budget. If we applied this 14% to the adopted budget for this school year, West Contra Costa would receive $67 million more than predicted. Next slide. Districts our size are required to hold 3% of total outgo in unrestricted reserves. 3% last year was $15.3 million. Currently, across the unrestricted reserves in Fund 17, we have 4 times that amount. We would also like to note that our new interim CBO for West Contra Costa is coming from LAUSD, where he put 40% of funds in savings in 22-23 and 43% in 23-24, instead of using it on today's children. The needed amount for a district that size is less than 3%. Next slide. Fund 17 consists of unrestricted dollars that are kept separate from the general fund and are in addition to the 3% unrestricted reserve. We often hear the term rainy day fund when describing Fund 17. Almost every year, West Contra Costa predicts in their adopted budget that millions of dollars will be needed from Fund 17. However, when the unaudited actuals come out in September, we see that not only $0 were used, but money was actually added to Fund 17.
Next slide, please. When the district makes their budgets, they've consistently overprojected expenditures and underprojected revenues. And in the same bargaining session that Francisco mentioned, where these numbers were stated to be accurate by our CBO, he's told us that they will always be conservative in their income predictions, and they will always be liberal in their spending predictions. So one of the things that they do is they will project that as if their vacancies are filled. As I said, we have 129 vacancies. So when you multiply that by the 145,000 they estimate for total compensation for our members when they build their budget, that's about 18.7 million that they are not going to spend right there. Now, the district did say last week that they do incur costs because of these vacancies, but even if you calculate in the cost of a sub for every single day and every single classroom, which we know is not happening, that would only be 45,000 a year, leaving 100,000 times 129, or almost $13 million. These numbers are important because the cuts they're making right now, they are claiming are to save $7 million. If they simply fix these projections, those needs for cuts goes away. We have been told that they are required to project this way, but we've also been told that the district can ask the county for special dispensation to not include these expenses that would be associated with these chronic vacancies in their projections. So again, simply by doing this, they could eliminate the need for the cuts they've been saying. Next slide, please. In the past month, 3 of our school board members voted, based on inaccurate information presented to them, to cut 26 positions to save $7 million. We are awaiting clarity on whether these vacant positions are being cut or if they are actually getting rid of people who are willing to work here. Unfortunately, as Francisco said, yesterday this number changed drastically, and tomorrow they will be voting to cut 75 of our members. Next slide, please.
Unified school districts are required to spend 55% of the current cost of education on classroom compensation, which includes teachers and instructional aid salaries and benefits. According to the unaudited actuals, West Contra Costa fell $11.4 million short last year and has not met this requirement in the past 4 years. Typically, this failure results in a penalty. However, it has been waived each year. Next slide.
In comparison to other districts, we are also spending less of our money on those who directly impact students. Next slide, please. So the state average for a district of our size would be to be spending about 35% of your total outgo on the certificated bargaining unit salaries. However, last year, even after a fairly significant raise, they were spending less than 30% on that. We also know, because of looking at the unaudited actuals from 1920 and from 1819, in 1920 they spent 35% of their budget on the bargaining unit salaries. On 1819 it was even higher, it was 39%. So when they have their priorities in place, they are able to actually fund educators. Next slide, please.
Over the past 5 years, we've seen a decrease in the percentage spent on our educators. This ratio has continued to weaken despite the compounded increases in pay, which this graph shows. Next slide. Although there has been a 6.33% decrease in the total outgo spent on our educators compared to 5 years ago, there has been a 3.48% increase in the total outgo spent on consultants.
So we appreciate the opportunity to present this information with you because in the community, there's a lot of misinformation saying that we have to cut when we don't have a fully staffed district. We have a dedicated group of individuals who love our community, who are willing to stay here and want to stay in our community and teach in Richmond and teach in West Contra Costa, but we're losing them because other districts are not providing yearly issues of instability, yearly issues of layoffs, and consistent mismanagement from our district. And so we're calling on our city councils across the district to support us in providing an independent analysis of the district projections and their actual numbers so that we can continue to serve our students to the best of our abilities and not have such a crisis on our hands here. So thank you very much, City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have 2 in-person public speakers. If there's anyone online that would like to address the council on this item, please raise your hand at this time. The 2 in-person speakers are Cordell Hindler and Don Gosney. Cordell Hindler.
Okay, I'm here. So good evening again, Mayor Martinez, Council. Thank you, Francisco and co-chairs for this presentation. So I do want the record to reflect that I was kind of responsible for this item because when I was looking at this article from the school district, I'm like, I'm just frustrated that that these cuts are projecting, and I'm like, I'm just mind blown about this because I'm like, I am a concerned person because I want to see the district going forward, but in order for that to happen, we need everyone at the table. So as Francisco pointed out, we need all the councils to be on board with this. So with that, Don Gosney, it's all yours.
Don Gosney.
Good evening. My comments tonight will have nothing to do with the content of this presentation. It's carefully crafted, but it's also crafted to push a very specific agenda. For those paying attention, it will be received as if it was drafted by the finger of God as being gospel, being complete and beyond dispute. My concern tonight is mostly why this is even being heard here. At the meetings of the elected WCC USD Board of Education, where the audio is so bad that most people cannot hear or understand what is being said, UTR would never have more than 5 minutes for a presentation. They would not be allowed a flashy slide deck. And instead of standing or sitting in front of a mostly friendly group of 8 of us, some of which UTR worked so hard to get elected, they'd be standing before a group of elected trustees who are actually chosen by the electorate to run the school district. This council should make it clear that this council has 0 jurisdiction over an entity overseen by a different elected body. Perhaps it can be made clear why this council would be so arrogant as to think that they have any say over what happens within another entity. And please help us understand how you reached out to each of the 5 elected school board members and the interim superintendent and offered them an equal opportunity to sit before us and rebut what's being presented here by the United Teachers of Richmond. Please provide us with written copies of those invitations sent out. What's really strange is that this uber-progressive community with a group of council members who are so left-wing that they think Bernie Sanders is a sellout, they seem to have embraced the slogan of Fox News as if it were their own, fair and balanced, when the whole world knows that the Fox News and this council is anything but fair and balanced. Might there be more information that was not included in this presentation? Perhaps reasons why the UTR demands can't or shouldn't be embraced? Should teachers be paid better? Absolutely, without question. But when the district does not have the money to pay them what they're worth, will the district employees accept IOUs instead of paychecks they can take to the bank? Would you? Demanding a higher salary and conditions and being worth a higher salary and conditions is one thing, but being able to sustainably finance them is totally different. And I know my time is out, but the Stige thing they brought up, I brought it up to multiple boards, superintendents, and the CBOC more than 7 years ago, 6 different times with pictures. Didn't just happen in July.
That was our last in-person speaker. Now we'll move to the online speaker. We currently have 1 speaker.
The speaker is Marisol. Marisol, you will have 2 minutes. You may begin. You may begin, Marisol.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, there you go. Okay. Hi, Marisol Cantu, 3rd generation Richmond resident, also a 2nd generation WCC USD graduate, current union member of United Faculty and work at Contra Costa College as a fellow educator. I believe that our approach to a school should be community-based. And I'm extremely happy that Francisco and UTR have brought this to Richmond's attention, as well as the other city councils in West Contra Costa Unified District. It is imperative that we prioritize our educators who are underpaid, overwhelmed, and extremely lacking the resources that they need right now. And my hope is to have our city council members shed light on the fiscal responsibility of the district and be willing to possibly provide aid in a potential audit of what is happening at West Contra Costa. I do believe it will take multiple cities to hold West Contra Costa Unified District trustees accountable. As other folks have mentioned, it is really clear that their educators are not at their priority right now. So thank you.
Thank you. That was our last speaker.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. Do we have comments from council members? Councilmember Bono.
Thank you. I have some quick questions. So you said 16.5% increase during the past 5 years, cumulative or just each year? I was confused how much the raise was.
Yeah, so we had a 2% increase, and then we had a 7%, and then the following year, 7.5% increase. So we were adding those together.
Okay. And what do consultants do usually for the school district?
I'm not sure we have a strong answer for you on that. What do consultants, what various things are they bringing consultants to do?
Consult.
Everything? A lot.
So is it useful or you object to the work of consultants? I'm unclear because it seems like you were objecting to the increase in their budget, but you're happy with their work or?
I think the fact that we can't even express to you what they do is problematic, that they're not being seen in the community, or there isn't clarity about what they're doing, just that more and more money is being sunk into them.
Okay, thank you. So I think what Don Gosney said is partially true, that you understand that we don't have any power over the school board, but at the same time, we're one community. I mean, you teach our children in this city, so it's very important for us what's going on in this school district. the city could recognize the role it could have to make things better for the school district, like housing. And I started discussion, thanks to our city manager and deputy city manager, Lena Velasco, to talk about affordable housing for teachers with the last superintendent. Unfortunately, they dropped the ball. If you provide your contact information for me, now I'm the appointed contact for the school district. I'll be happy to pick it up at your union to see if we can get anywhere. No promises, but we can do our best.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson?
Hello. So I have some familiarity with the community's feelings about the administration of WCC USD because I'm the representative for the district that contains Stige Elementary. And, you know, even while I was running for office last year, a lot of the conversations I had in the north part of District 5, which is the south side of Richmond, which is the Stige Elementary neighborhood, were imploring me to have the city do something about the school district. And it was a very, very common request from folks in that neighborhood, many of whom send their kids to that school, or and in many cases themselves were alumni of that school. And I was always sort of, I felt bad because I was left very flat-footed, like, the city doesn't manage the school district. I don't actually know how, I agree with you, things are going very wrong in Stige with the situation with Stige being in such disrepair and in other areas, but I didn't know what to do. So I very much appreciate your coming today with a very specific action item that you're asking for, which is this independent analysis of finances. One question I have for you is that is this something that you have sort of costed out or sort of thought through in the specifics? I'm not a finance person, so it's not immediately clear to me what that would look like. So I was just curious if you had any sort of sense of what that would look like. And then I sort of want to turn it over to the city attorney and sort of ask the question of like, are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to sort of, as a public, make a motion to dig in, to spend money to dig into the finances of another entity? I'm hoping the answer is yes, but go ahead. If you can sort of tell us what the vision you have for this study.
Yeah, so what we were thinking is similar to how SFUSD or how the mayor has sent in different department heads that were working along with the city. So similarly, how we have partnerships through collaborative relationships like the System Change Collaborative or independent analysis that would go and provide alternative reductions that the district could take or eliminate the vacancies that they're projecting for, like suggest those types of waivers as opposed to, suggesting or requesting waivers that allow the district to operate with below the 55% that is recommended for classroom compensation. Mm-hmm. So finding alternative solutions that don't require eliminating people who are willing to educate our students. And as to Councilmember Bonna's point earlier about the consultants, a lot of that is actually going towards sometimes like special ed instructional support or consultants, because our Teamsters aides are not getting paid a living wage who live in our community. They are Richmond constituents. They are the cafeteria workers. They are our office workers. They are all the people that work closely with our students, but sometimes they can only work 2 hours a day. They can't, feed their families in that way. So the district will spend $90 an hour for a consultant aide who might not have a relationship with our students. And so there's different alternatives that the district could make to invest in today's students, as opposed to continuing to project these cuts that are unnecessary.
And in terms of, did I understand at the start of it, did SF, is that San Francisco United School District, has done a study like this to sort of look at the financial practices of that district, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that was just last fall where the district was proposing to close several schools all across the district. And so the mayor worked with the district to do their own analysis, and then they were able to stop those closures.
I see. So the city sort of stepped in and it sounds like in a collaborative way was able to say, we'll pay for, is that correct? Or was it not, was it sort of imposed on the school district, that study?
I don't have that answer for you, Councilmember
Okay,
Wilson.
no, that's fine. So we can look that up. And so I'm just curious, like, can we do that? Or is there anything impeding us from doing that? Might be a better way to answer the question.
Well, I don't know exactly what is being proposed to be done. Obviously, there are jurisdictions superior to the school entity, like the state, just as the state of California has come in and audit you and looked at your financial responsibility and ended up suggesting things that we should be doing. There are other entities that are above and superior to the school entity that could come forward and do that. It is true that you are a public agency that represents many of the same things, and the things you said about being community are true. And politically, I suppose well, I've certainly been there where different public agencies are asked to kind of intervene and look at and give their opinion. And if you're not spending any money, that's a political issue for you to judge whether you should get involved or not. But I think you're just getting started in looking at your budget process and dealing with MOUs and your employee groups. And you know that it's very difficult putting your budgets together. There are judgment calls that are made and adjustments that are made. And so you have to put yourself in the shoes of the governing body here. If another public agency came forward to start looking at all these financial situations and the judgment calls that they represent and started recommending to you that you make different judgment calls than the calls they have made. So it's politics in a way, and it's your choice how you get involved with politics, but you certainly will get pushback.
But from a legal but from a legal standpoint, there's nothing, we wouldn't be violating anything by doing that sort of work.
Well, would the auditing entity, which has told you you're not spending your money appropriately, think this is an appropriate way for you to spend your money? You are in that process. You've been given things to do to try and correct it. Again, what political opinions you offer are not an issue, but if you spend money on something, that gets looked at in terms of your overall budget process.
So we'd have to make an argument that this is sort of in our interest.
Well, that it's within, it's going to improve your economic performance in some way.
Well, yeah, and then I'll stop talking, but I think one of the things that makes it hard for us to recruit new businesses and sort of puts a cap on our housing is concerns about the schools. Like I think part of what's going to lift up Richmond is really doing what we need to do to invest and uplift the schools. It's a big problem that again people talk about all the time.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson.
Hi, thank you for coming forward tonight. And thank you for your service to our community as teachers and our community at Ford and Verde and everything. Can you repeat your ask, all of the elements of the ask? I didn't catch all of the elements.
Thank you. So the ask is 3. Urging the board to pass a resolution declaring the district's financial governance as a crisis, underscoring the need for transparency and accountability. Second.
And let's just to pause there for a second. And that is an ask of us to have a resolution from our council declaring it a crisis. Okay, just to clarify. Thank you. And then next.
And the second is to conduct an independent assessment of West Contra Costa Unified financial practices and make recommendations to ensure funds are being used directly to benefit students and educators.
And there's a third, or is that? Yeah.
And the third is to partner with educators, those who are closest to our students, to stop the unnecessary dismantling of our schools.
I'm sorry, I lost the last part. Partner with our educators.
To stop the dismantling of our schools.
Can you say a little bit more about number 3? What in particular, how could the council partner better or at all with educators? Like what exactly are kind of the goals or action items you'd be looking for there?
Support in, public support. We've had several actions, especially over the last couple of weeks with the reassignment of educators mid-year, which in previous, the district has said that they cannot do that per contract, and then when they did it mid-year, they went ahead and did it anyway. Just 2 weeks ago, we had another reconsideration for the vote to stop the elimination of speech-language pathologists when we have students at Verde Elementary who are being given speech-language pathologist services through Zoom from a person in Chile. So we're trying to understand how is any of this making sense. The district is not necessarily engaging with the union in a very collaborative approach since the new administration has taken over, and so we really want to ensure that we have as much community support because we're losing educators, by record numbers because they're going to other districts.
So would community support from us look like letters of support, showing up at actions? I'm trying to
letters of
make sure
support,
it's clear.
the public proclamation or the public resolution, and potentially speaking at city council or at board meetings when these decisions are being made.
Great. And one more question. Does the union participate in our partnership meetings, or is that just with administrative folks?
No, one of the, you were talking about consultants. One of the consultants that the school district is engaging with is the Glenn Price Group, and that is focused around building community schools. So they want to create communities, between feeder schools, middle schools to high schools. They're focusing on the middle schools at this point. And I don't want to take over questions, but have the teachers union, have teachers been aware of what the Glenn Price Group is doing? And
Mayor, before we go there, can I have my last question answered, and then I'll be done?
Okay.
So I'm just trying to understand what our current partnership, because we have these partnership meetings, correct? And I'm trying to understand who is in those meetings, and is the union present or no?
Right, that's what I was asking.
Okay, I'm sorry.
About the Glenn Price Group in particular.
So I'm not sure if that's the same meeting, but
You haven't been yet.
I just got appointed, so I'm confused.
Yeah. Right. So we have a kind of commission committee, I'm not quite sure what the proper name for it is, that's supposed to be some kind of a partnership between the city and the district. And I was just wondering what's going on with that? Who goes? Are you guys there? Apparently not, if no one knows about it. So maybe I'll
If I might
yeah, go ahead.
elaborate on that. We had tried to start a collaboration between the school and the city council, but the question was who represents. Was it the school board? Was it the superintendent? Was it the mayor? Was it the city council? You know, and that was never resolved. So those meetings actually never took place. And we had at one time had collaborative meetings where the school board and the where the school board and the city council had joint meetings, and that has not happened in many years. Well, are you done? Okay, then Councilmember Jimenez.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and explaining. I think this is part of what we need to hear. It's not like, yeah, it's another body that is elected, but the residents who goes and be served by the schools are also Richmond residents. So I think it's part of our business. And as also Councilmember Wilson was saying, is also in the economic part. The schools are a big part of why maybe we don't have that much coming in other residents, and I had to be very careful about that because I am against gentrification, but I think this is a big issue in terms of like the quality of the schools that we want. So we need, like, is in the benefit of the city of Richmond for all residents that our schools are doing well. So yes, we were trying to have a joint meeting with the school, and I think like we should be putting this as an action item, like to have this joint meeting so we can have this conversation also with the school board that are the elected body there, and have the staff of the city and the staff there just giving us more information. I agree of the ask. I think like for us, it's important to have a knowledge as we are also like here trying to get as many audits. We just did an audit of the port to just really give information to the residents and to other elected officials about our business, because this is a public business and it's in our best interest to be transparent. And so we want that from other elected bodies as well, and especially elected bodies that are serving the community in Richmond. So I will make a motion to accept the recommendations and to look into how we can have, and adding to that, to have a joint meeting.
I'm sorry, this was just a presentation. There was no provision made for direction.
Well, it says, and to receive the presentation and to discuss ways in which we can work together. So this is the direct action. So
it says discussions. It does not say direction.
I'm sorry, but like one moment. Receive a presentation and discuss recommendation on how to better support Richmond students and families. So we are discussing, so maybe it's that we will have to bring back a resolution for this body to be approved and with the specific ask. So I will be working on in another item to bring that specific. And right now, I think like we had been clear and directing staff in many other time to really seek for a joint meeting with the school board. So we need to do that. So I will be working to bring the resolution and bring these items to the city council in the next meeting or so, to really move forward this and support the teachers and support the students, because it's in our best interest that we have a knowledge of what is happening. And yeah, so thank you.
Vice Mayor Cepeda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, and I agree. Thank you for your service. I was one of those students a long time ago in our system. It's Richmond High School, and then prior to that, Helms. So thank you for your service. I looked up a little bit, and I don't know that this has any particular answers, but the city of San Francisco says it has the city has a stake in the functioning of the San Francisco Unified School District because it contributes funding to the schools. So that might be the caveat. We don't particularly give funding. So I don't know if that's the answer or not, but maybe that should be the answer going forward. Maybe it's how do we other cities help out, especially if the school district is in trouble. What happens, as my colleague has mentioned, they are a big part of our city. You guys teach our schools and our kids, so maybe we have to figure that out. And maybe it's a, excuse me, having a collaboration with the other cities and USD and the unions. So it's not just Richmond, but us helping us. Maybe we commit to going to our colleagues in the other cities and having this conversation and coming together, how we can help out. In terms of doing an audit, I'm just trying to think if another city was to come and say they want to audit us, Nikki, would we give our numbers to them?
Well,
a lot
it's
of
all
it is
public knowledge, but for another city to actually come in and audit another city, I do not know if that would be a useful thing for their resources.
So I'm just trying to
so
figure
that all
out,
has
like,
to be looked
what's
at.
the best outcome. And I know the result that we want is to be more transparent, right? You guys have great data already. So how do we make sure that we put that out there and back you guys up with the data you guys have without overstepping each other's boundaries and respecting it? And maybe we help put pressure on the other elected officials because they're the ones that have to make the final decisions. Because even if we were to audit, they don't have to take it. Just like it sounds like they don't want to take yours either. So we might be in the same boat, and we are in the same boat here. So how do we make sure that we have some good actionable items for them that they're willing to take and they can work with it? And maybe it's something that's a partnership. And maybe through the mayor, we create another committee, standing committee or so. But we really try to work with the other colleagues in the other cities to say, okay, here's a situation. How do we help out? Because it's going to affect all of us. If the school district declines, our population declines. A long time ago, it was the Richmond Unified School District. So we did have a little more jurisdiction. It was just the city of Richmond. It's in our charter, actually, that we are to help out and manage the school district. But it was the old school district. Our charter hasn't been updated very much, but it's still there, right? Just as it says, we sort of have a hospital, which we don't. That's my own little thing, other project. But I think that there's opportunities there to speak to the other cities and bring them here. And I don't know if you're doing this presentation to all the other 5 cities. If you're not, I think we should. And then partnering, again, I think that should be the first step. What can we do to partner? And then you have a couple of the new school board members. So maybe reaching out to them together. I will reach out to my school board member that represents the areas of my district and see what we can do together. And then whatever new action item my colleagues bring, I would like to see what that is. But we'll have to partner with you all as well so that we can really bring something forward that doesn't step. But I mean, this is really great data. They should be looking at it a lot closer if they haven't already. And I'm definitely down for a letter of support. So those are my only questions and thoughts for now. But thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brown?
Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation, and also echoing Councilman Cepeda, some great data And I'm wondering, has this PowerPoint presentation or a similar presentation been brought before the school board already?
So we have standing reports that we can provide to the school district for 5 minutes, but we're not allowed to provide any types of visuals to the school board. We have shared the information with the school board members during private meetings, and so we have shared this information with them. To another point that was raised earlier about potentially collaborating with other cities as well. That was one of the aims of the Systems Change Collaborative, which was a offshoot of the West County Mayors and Supervisors Association to create that committee to better support our schools. However, this has not been brought over to that committee that I know of in this school year. Last year, we worked on supporting with reducing chronic absenteeism, and then also with expanding the access for community-based organizations to access the school facilities for after-school recreations, and so we were successful in that regard. The only thing that we were bringing up is how is chronic absenteeism impacting our schools with the highest vacancies, and so they weren't able to bring forward some action items to support that.
Okay. I just foresee that collaborating with the school board would be in our best interest, because there's a lot of questions that I have, like why this or why that, why is this amount allocated towards that I feel that the school district or the school district and board would have the best answers for that. So I'm interested in seeing where our collaborative efforts would go. Again, I'm not in the business of stepping on toes, because I like to go to the source instead of trying to figure things out based, without the key stakeholders at the table, because I would want to know how we have this increased spending on professional consulting, if that was a good did they see fit for that being a great gesture versus the 4 consecutive years of not meeting the state mandated classroom compensation requirement? Like, why were those additional funds not allocated to meeting that requirement? So there's a lot of why questions. So I'm looking forward to future collaborations and going to the source. And I feel like, if any of these questions are needed and we can't get the whole group together, they still have school board meetings that we can all attend and advocate. I'm a parent of students in the district, so we always go to the school board meetings and are there able to support other groups that are speaking up about these similar concerns. So thank you.
Councilmember Bana?
Thank you. So suppose that we did listen to you and did a financial analysis. What would it give you?
Can you repeat your question?
Suppose we did a financial analysis, as you suggested. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
What would it bring to you? What's the result? What's the consequence?
I think that the consequence is that it reiterates the point that we have been making for the past years, that we cannot continue to hollow out our schools at the expense of our students. And so we have the city of Richmond, who houses the majority of all of our schools in our district, also supporting that analysis. And if you don't, you don't.
Well, suppose we affirm, without going into financial analysis, there was a study at some point that 2 categories of people that the professions people trust most are teachers and doctors. So we trust you. I'm sure the majority of people trust you. There is no need for financial analysis. But my point is, we can work collaboratively. All of us are on your side, right? But without the benefits of such an analysis, it just creates hostility between us and the school board. We entering their territory, and that's not what you want. That's not what we want. But let's think about what we can do together to make things better for you. You are very important to the city because the children are very important to the city. Maybe the city can help with housing, with loans. I mean, we can talk to Mechanics Bank, other, banks in the city to have special programs for you or device programs. Maybe we could have special services for teachers, special discounts. So my suggestion to you is come back with another presentation with other suggestions that are more constructive, more beneficial to you, more feasible, more doable. You see what I'm saying?
Thank you.
So that we're more than willing to help you. But by a hostile approach to the school board, we don't get anywhere. And everybody already believes you guys.
If I may, part of the concern right now is that there is a very concerted campaign to put out information from the school district that they are saying, we are the only ones you can trust. They literally put in an email, do not trust any information not from WCCUSD. All the information presented to you tonight, as the CBO endorsed, is accurate information. It is all pulled personally, mostly by me, from documents the district gives to the state. But they are really pushing right now the narrative that there is no money, and they are using that narrative to cut our internationals program, which helps students who have come here who need to learn English. They are using it to cut our virtual program, which is used by families who, for maybe medical reasons, for whatever reason, cannot get their children to school each day, and it's a lifeline for them. They're using it to cut our career technical education programs. Right now, they are just eviscerating our schools, and it is putting more and more burden on the teachers who are still here, who are working all their period subbing every day. They're taking additional students in their classroom. So every year, we just watch this downward spiral happen because they say we have no money. People leave because their programs are being cut. We have no money. People leave, and it's this terrible cycle, and it has not been great in the 9 years I've been here, but I've never seen it this close to a breaking point. And when I speak to people who have been in the district 18 years, which is rare, we get a huge drop-off after 5 years of service. I'm having people tell me that this is probably their final year, and they just cannot deal with the unknowns anymore. So if we can have your support to say, this information that you're putting out here, and all the information they're using right now is their budget for the year, which is all projections. And for example, I was looking at their first interim report that just came out, and they suddenly escalated how much they are going to spend on salaries for our bargaining unit by $17 million. From the budget to the first interim, suddenly they're spending $17 million more, even though we're not fully staffed. So I was like, that's interesting. I went back to the first interim in the budget from 22-23. There was I believe it was a $15 million jump that never came to fruition. So they're manipulating these numbers in a way that strikes fear in our district and just creates that downward spiral. So if we can have any interruption into that fear, that would be a support for us.
Well, I assure you that we all will do our best. I personally will communicate with the trustee in my district and other trustees as much as I can. I believe all of us will do that to find out why they do it. I'm sure they have the best intentions for the community too. They may have a different strategy. We need to figure it out. By the way, are you representing all the teachers in Richmond? Are they all members of this union? There's only a single union, or there are multiple unions?
Yeah, we're the representative for school counselors, teachers, speech language pathologists, so all certificated non-management educators.
Within Richmond?
West Contra Costa.
West Contra Costa, excellent. So you are in communication with the parents. And I believe your presentation here was excellent in the sense that you did receive publicity. People heard you, I'm sure media heard you. And whenever you want to be heard, you're more than welcome to come to the council. But please, again, think twice before listing your specific asks to make sure it's most beneficial to you and doesn't put us in an uncomfortable position. to step over anyone's toes, as my colleague mentioned. But you have our full support. We all value our teachers. And, I personally have great respect for teachers. They've done a lot for my children. And I'm sure we all do in the community. So you have our full support, but come up with a specific doable ask. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I know the city does MOU with a school district. Is it okay to ask the city deputy manager to explain it to us, or it's not a good time?
Now is not the time.
Okay, at another time. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I hope I conveyed. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Robinson?
Okay. So I'm trying to take a couple of breaths here and focus myself. I agree that leading with collaboration is key. And I agree we are a political body. And in this moment, it calls for us to step forward and be political. Use politics, use our ability to politic to move the needle on this item. And there are things that we can and should be doing. It shouldn't be good enough to us to say, oh, we haven't met, it hasn't happened. Like, I think that we could put our heads together and actually come up with a really dynamic group. Like, if we could actually assemble other electeds who are also affected by West Contra Costa Unified School District, not just leave it on the teachers union to try to rally everybody. We know other people in El Cerrito, in Pinole, and we know the electeds there. We can reach out directly to them and say, hey, we need to convene on this issue. We also know people like Tony Thurman, who used to be a member of this body, who is now the Secretary of Education for the state of California. We can reach out to our state representatives and convene on this matter and call in the district in that arena and say, hey, we need to look at this. This is an issue, this is a problem, and it is a crisis, and that we don't sit back and kind of wait and hope that something good happens maybe. So I do feel like we can have a powerful role in this moment, and that we are being called to step up and use our political skills to move the needle. I think we can easily come back and do a resolution in support of what was asked, to declare that there is a crisis. That is not something that is outside of our realm of capacity. We make resolutions about all kinds of things, that we see that are incorrect, not going right across the world. We can definitely do one that's affecting every child that goes to public school in Richmond. And I feel like, how can we create viable communication so that I know when it's absolutely necessary for me to show up to that West Contra Costa Unified School District meeting, get on the speaking and speak out as a council member to weigh in on issues. Like, I would like to have some kind of alert. I probably can't go to every single meeting, but I can show up when it's really important. So can we create a listserv? Can we create a little email list, make it easy so when you all need support, we can show up, and maybe a couple of us can be like, we'll definitely be the ones who can show up. So I feel like we need to look at what we can do in this moment and do it, and not look at, not hyper focus on what we can't do or what we're unsure about or anything like that. I do feel like convening a group of stakeholders in the realms of the elected realms, and maybe some parents in there too, could really turn the tides. And if we do it sooner rather than later, it might help. And we could have a meeting to talk about what's the best strategy around this. I think this is a moment to use our political skills to move the needle. Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
We almost made it through the day without a Wilson. I just want to, again, also take a breath to try to keep my adrenaline level low. I just want to make clear that I think in Councilmember Bonna's previous comments, she used the pronoun we when she was speaking, and I just want to make clear that she was not speaking for the group. She's speaking for herself, as is her right, but I just really want to emphasize that this idea that we don't want to step on any toes is not my feeling about what I'm willing to do for Richmond teachers. If I have to step on some toes to improve the working conditions and the education conditions of Richmond kids, I'll step on toes. I second everything that Doria just said. I think it is incumbent on us not to say to you, come back to the drawing board, come back with new ideas. We need to put together a plan and bring it to you to see as you've come to raise the alert. I appreciate that you did that. Now it's incumbent on us to think about ways that we can use the influence that we do have in order to try to correct this situation. I want to make clear, we sort of mumbled it up here, but just to make clear to everybody, the way that this item's agendized, we are not allowed to make a decision tonight to say, we're going to do a resolution, we're going to do this. So this has sort of devolved a little bit into brainstorming, which I hope we wrap up pretty soon. But I have every intention, and I can feel the energy on this group, that many of us will be racing each other to see who's going to come up with that sort of first sort of proposal about next steps, which will be done in consultation with you. So I just don't want you to go away thinking that we're saying, come back next time being nicer. I guess my real message is hang in there, and thank you for raising this issue. And I think I'm not trying to villainize the school board, but I think you've made a compelling case that they're overestimating expenses, underestimating revenue, and saving too much to generate an artificial crisis that's causing them to lay off teachers and impact today's students. And I want us to do what we can to make that stop. So.
Councilmember Jimenez.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Councilmember Wilson. Willis, oh my God, Melvin, we miss you here. Wilson and Robinson are saying, I am not here and I wasn't elected to step away because I am feeling uncomfortable. This is not the role that we have as elected leaders. We are here to feel uncomfortable because there are some decisions that we will have to make that are not popular, but are the right things for our community, as we know. And I think the right thing for our community is to really work to make sure that our children are well served in their schools. And when I saw that, reserves, it's great to have reserves, but hoarding money at the expenses of not having good teachers or cutting services for our community is not okay. We have been able here to make really great improvements in the budget. We now have a 21% reserves. But right now, the audit said that they show 26% in reserve. No, this is not reserve. We had $13 million in surplus that we need to spend it in our community instead of hoarding it in some reserve funds, because our reserve policy is 21%. So, and the reserves are to be used in moments of crisis to avoid the cutting of services. This is what we have reserves. So kind of creating a crisis and telling the board members that this is not going to be used is just kind of a misleading about how we can use funds, public funds. So I think since I was the one working with you to bring this item, and I work with you because I think it's really important to have you to have the space that you don't get in the board for the community to really know what is happening. And I think what we need to do, and I want to just kind of say, I don't know, but if Loshanda is here, Miss Wife, I think you were the point person to the community schools conversation between the city and the board. So I am not going to put you on the spot right now, but I did already. But it will be good to have some information about what has this conversation been, what is, or kind of like really relation of what we have been doing, and to have some ideas on what we need to do to improve it. And I am willing to work on, like maybe with Councilmember Sue and Councilmember Robinson, to really start putting together some of these meetings, because I think like we deserve to know more, because the schools serve poor children. Richmond kids are being served there, and this is part of our business as well. So thank you.
So I'm a retired elementary school teacher. I taught at Downer Elementary and Sheldon Elementary, so I know what it's like to be a teacher, and I know what it's like to be unrecognized for the hard work that you do. I also recognize that when you're not heard by the board that should be hearing you, and you're not allowed to be heard by them, then you do what's best. You find a venue that will listen to you, and I thank you for coming here, because we are here to represent all of our community. I was on the Glen Price Community Schools Group, and they recognized that chronic absenteeism is a major issue. And so that's one of the things that they were focusing on. I am disturbed that that conversation hasn't made its way to the teachers. You know, one thing that is always problematic with consulting groups is that we end up with white papers that don't become action items. And so I'm sure that Glen Price Group is listening, watching this now. So I would ask them to engage UTR, engage all the teachers in their efforts to address chronic absenteeism and to address the teacher shortage. It's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the children. It's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to anyone to house classrooms with substitute teachers. If you're a substitute teacher, you're not capable of giving the kind of instruction that the students need. You need to be there every day with them. You need to construct lesson plans that follow day by day, week by week, month by month, so that you can chronicle the advancement of all the students. And you can only do that by not being a substitute, but by being their actual teacher for the school year. I think that, I'm sorry?
Can we go into detail? I'm sorry.
Yes. So I'm sorry. Anyway, this conversation needs to be a community conversation. This conversation needs to be a joint conversation between the school board and the councils. And I do like the idea of creating a unified conversation between all electeds of all the cities, Pinole, Hercules, San Pablo, Richmond, El Cerrito, and the school board, the unions, and the city. So next time when we come together, we will have ideas that will be brought by you and that will be brought by us. Because only by working together and sharing ideas can we advance and move forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.